As engineers, whether in cybersecurity, software engineering, data, AI, or any other field, we spend years trying to sharpen our craft, learning new tools, new skills, new frameworks, and systems, but there's something that no certification, bootcamp, or degree can give you. And it's not technical depth. It's not years of experience. It's not influence. It's wisdom. And Proverbs Chapter 2 tells us what happens when we actually heed that wisdom and when we don't just learn about it, but walk with it and apply it. Welcome back to the Godly Engineer podcast. If you're new here, I'm your host, Dave Johnson, and I'm a cybersecurity engineer at Amazon, a builder, and a believer. This podcast is all about the intersection of faith and engineering. As engineers, builders, problem solvers, and innovators, we impact billions of lives through our work. But as Christians, we're called to something deeper, to work and live in alignment with God's word for his plans and purpose for us, and to walk in his wisdom. In this season of the podcast, we're exploring the concept of wisdom, not just as an abstract idea or mere information, but as something that is personal, practical, and powerful. Godly wisdom as outlined in the amazing book of Proverbs. In the last episode, we talked about why we need wisdom and how Proverbs introduces Lady Wisdom as a real person, someone who calls out to us daily in the noise of life. Today, we're diving into Proverbs Chapter 2, where we see the results, the output of what happens when we take wisdom seriously. So let's walk through what it truly means to heed wisdom as godly engineers. There are 6 things that come from God's wisdom, according to Proverbs Chapter 2. The first thing is the true knowledge of God. Let's take a look at it in Proverbs Chapter 2, verses 5 to 6. And it says, "Then you will grasp what it means to truly respect the eternal, and you will have discovered the knowledge of the one true God." Verse 6 says, "The eternal is ready to share his wisdom with us, for his words bring true knowledge and insight." When you heed wisdom, your entire perspective shifts. It completely changes. Matter of fact, in the last episode, we talked about how wisdom transforms our lives, essentially completely changes the direction of our lives. But here it's talking about how you begin to understand that reverence for God is the starting point for everything meaningful. There's another version of the Bible where in Proverbs it says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." And as engineers, we revere the laws of physics, the logic of code, the precision of design, and all these different really cool things. But reverence for God means acknowledging him and the fact that all those laws and systems come from him. It's this perspective that shifts you from technical knowledge to divine understanding, and it's that quiet awareness that God himself is the source of everything. When you realize that everything that we know, every knowledge, every piece of wisdom that is man-made or man-discovered comes from God as the source of everything, that perspective shift is when you truly start to understand and revere God for who he truly is, which is the beginning of wisdom. The second thing is the protection of God, which is in verse 8. Let's take a look at it. It says, "God protects the paths of those who pursue justice, watching over the lives of those who keep faith with him." When you walk in wisdom, you come under God's protective architecture. He becomes your firewall, so to speak, or your intrusion prevention system against things of this world like deceit, burnout, and compromise, amongst many other things. And the truth is that this protection isn't always visible. Sometimes it looks like a door of opportunity that didn't open, or a job that you didn't get, or a friendship or relationship that ended. But in hindsight, those were moments of God's protection, of him covering your back even when you had no idea what was coming for you. The third thing that comes with God's wisdom is being equipped to make the right decisions. Let's look at verse 9. "With this wisdom, you will be able to choose the right road, seek justice, and decide what is good and fair." Decision making is one of the hardest parts of an engineering career. What stack to learn, what skills to build, what road to take, when to move on, when to quit your job, when to start applying for jobs, all these different things. But wisdom gives you discernment. It helps you to identify when something might look good on the surface, like, for example, a job or a role, but it has some logical flaws underneath. When you start letting God's wisdom filter your choices, you would notice that your intuition sharpens and you have more confidence in your decision because you know you're just not making things up by yourself. You're actually living and following according to God's wisdom, which is so much more and so much better than whatever it is you can ever think or imagine. At that point, you're no longer just guessing or just making calculated decisions. You're now being guided by God's wisdom, which knows no bounds, which knows no level of a lack of understanding. And in that way, you will always be equipped to make the right decisions. The fourth thing, which is also a beautiful thing, is the multiplication of gifts. We're already gifted as engineers in whatever we do, but let's look at verse 10 to 11 and see what it says. Because wisdom will penetrate deep within, and knowledge will become a good friend to your soul. Verse 11 says, sound judgment will stand guard over you, and understanding will watch over you, as the Lord promised. Here's the blessing that comes with wisdom. When wisdom becomes part of your life and part of your default operating system, whatever it is that your life is, new gifts start multiplying around you. Creativity, patience, empathy, strategy, even beyond that, when you're filled with the Spirit of God, you start bearing fruits of the Spirit. You start noticing how easily you can make more difficult decisions. You can mentor others. You can leverage God's peace to anchor you in high pressure situations. And your sense of purpose becomes unshakable, regardless of whatever situation you're in. That can only come from the spirit of wisdom that comes from God, not just from your own calculated decisions, because you will always be relying on your own understanding. Wisdom will not just guide you, it will cover you and also enhance you, like it says here, with all these different things that come with you in everything that you're doing. The fifth thing that comes with God's wisdom is freedom from seductive temptations. Let's look at verse 16. Wisdom will pluck you from the trap of a seductive woman, from the enticing propositions of the adulteress. Now, this verse is obviously literally speaking of sexual immorality, but symbolically, it's a mirror for seductive distractions. And I've made a previous episode about distractions, which I recommend you go check out. In our world, temptations rarely look evil. It looks more attractive, like it says here in this verse. And as engineers, our seductive woman might be social media, it might be money, it might be fame, it might be power, it might be titles, it might be compromise, it might be the urge to be seen as the smartest person in the room all the time, the ego, the pride that comes with that. Wisdom disciplines your heart so your ambition doesn't become your downfall. And also so that the devil doesn't use your desires, your godly desires, against you. It helps you to build things that matter instead of chasing after things that vanish eventually, essentially fleeting pleasures. Just like Mark chapter 8 verse 36 says, really, what profit is there for you to gain the whole world and lose yourself in the process? Wisdom helps you to keep your eyes not on the seductive things, but on the things that God wants for you, according to his plans and purposes for your life. The sixth thing that wisdom gives you is the gift of a staying power. Let's look at verse 21. For those who live right will remain in the land, and those with integrity will endure here. This is truly one of the most underrated blessings of wisdom, or even any gift of life. It's stability. As engineers, we're building long-term careers. At least that's what I'm building. I hope that's the same for you. In building systems in general, the average system will fail without proper maintenance, and so will we. Wisdom gives you that right staying power that endures over the course of your career. I'm personally trying to build a very long-term career here, and I know I need wisdom across all of that. Wisdom will keep your character aligned, your work sustainable, and your mind, body, soul, and spirit anchored in the right things. It's the difference between you eventually burning out and feeling like you're not called to do something in your engineering career and building a legacy in a way that actually delivers work that God's called you to do in the world and for his plans and purposes for you. So this is the reflection portion of the podcast, and I want you to take a moment to just think about all of these different things. Think about how wisdom has already been whispering in your life. Those nudges, those convictions, those closed doors that didn't make sense at first. And maybe God was just protecting you from a shortcut that could have cost you your integrity. I think personally for me, just like in the previous podcast where we talked about how wisdom is calling out to us, I think wisdom is constantly just nudging at me with convictions like about what I'm doing, what I'm saying. Like yesterday, I actually had this very particular experience. I was reviewing some work from a teammate, and I had this desire to want to be extremely critical about that thing in a way that wasn't constructive or positive. And I realized, because I felt like that was just kind of like, what people do. Like people are just critical. But I realized that it even says it here in Proverbs. It says it here in Proverbs Chapter 28, verse 23. A person who offers constructive criticism will in the end be appreciated more than a person who engages in empty flattery. Also, in Proverbs Chapter 25, verse 12, it says, "To an attentive ear, constructive criticism from a truly wise person is like an earring or jewelry made of fine gold." And I had to stop myself and really just take a step back and think, am I offering constructive criticism to this person right here, or am I just trying to, pull them down? And that was a way that wisdom was convicting me, right? And I had to really take a step back from that and approach whatever I was saying and whatever I was helping with this person do at work to be more constructive and not tearing down. So as you're writing your next line of code or leading your next engineering project or making your next big career decision, ask for wisdom, not just to succeed, but to stay, to be fulfilled, and to live according to God's purpose for your life and the work that he's called you to do. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning into the Godly Engineer podcast. If this episode encouraged you, I wanted you to share with someone who is navigating their own journey of growth in their engineering career, whether even in college at this point. This podcast grows by word of mouth. And the Christian faith is a go and tell faith. So like the episode, leave a 5-star rating if you're listening to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, drop a comment or a DM. And until next time, keep building, keep growing, and keep walking in God's wisdom. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.